What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Shontavia Show, where my goal is to help you start a business based on your life's vision. This ain't gonna be your daddy's business advice. I'm laser focused on entrepreneurship in the 21st century, vision, and breaking the traditional mold. If you can get with that, you can get with me. Be sure to visit shontavia.com for more episodes, blog posts, and other content. Thank you for listening. The show starts now. Welcome to another episode of the Shontavia Show, where I want to inspire you to build the brand and business you were made for. And I am thrilled to have with me today Stephanie Humphrey. She's a technology and lifestyle expert. I get my entire life from her Instagram feed and her LinkedIn posts about just like using technology to make your lives better. So I want to introduce Stephanie to those of you who have not gotten your lives yet from her Instagram or her LinkedIn. She's a former engineer who merges her passion for lifestyle media with in-depth tech expertise, which I can attest to. Stephanie has this amazing background. She's currently a technology contributor for ABC News. She's worked as part of the nationally syndicated Strahan Sara Keke team, as well as contributing to Good Morning America. Before that, she was part of the Harry Show, hosted by Harry Connick Jr., which I also love as a New Orleans boy, me having lived in New Orleans for a while. And Stephanie has a new book out called Don't Let Your Digital Footprint Kick You in the Butt, which expands on concepts revolving around maintaining a positive reputation online out in cyberspace. So Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here.
So I mean it when I say I get my life from your Instagram feed and all the different tips that you recommend. And I am so curious about your background. You've got all these different things in your background, from technology and engineering to modeling and television. What is your story? How did you get to this point?
It was definitely not a straight line. It was, I don't know if you remember like the Sunday comics at all. I was a big fan of Sunday comics when people actually read newspapers. And there was one particular comic called The Family Circus, which was about this little white family. And Billy was kind of the central figure in that comic strip. And every now and again, they would do a one panel comic where his mom would say, you know, go to the store and bring back or whatever. But he would go all through over the river and through the woods. And they'd show this whole little journey that he would take with these dotted lines where he'd stop and play with a dog and then go climb a tree and then, you know, and finally get to where he needed to go. And I always think about that when I think about my journey, because it's been so varied and twisty and turny and up and down and left and right, and kind of not necessarily, you know, looking back big picture, it is not as all over the place as it might sound. I think all of those things played into, you know, where I am right now. All of it was training and education and preparation for that next step. And it all fits in very perfectly because, you know, God doesn't do anything imperfectly. So it all fits in. But so, yeah, I was an engineer by trade and training, proud Florida A&M Rattler, and did my master's degree at the University of Pennsylvania and started working at Lockheed Martin and did what most people do. Got a good job. You know, you go to school, you get a good job. That's what your parents tell you to do. And, you know, you're making a decent living and you're taking vacations and you're shopping and you're going to brunch and you're just living your best life, basically. And it wasn't my best life. I wasn't happy at all at that job. You know, I appreciate what it allowed me to be able to do outside of the company, the flexibility that it offered me to grow this other brand, but I did not like the work at all. Anybody that knows me from that time will tell you, my manager would probably tell you, my performance reviews probably reflected the fact that I was not fulfilled there at all. It just wasn't the type of work that I saw myself doing for any long-term time frame and retiring from. So I started looking for some sort of exit strategy. And I actually did a few different things before I sort of landed where I am now. I was very much into fitness and wellness. I still am, but at the time I thought I might be a personal trainer. So I was actually certified to teach group fitness. I was teaching kickboxing and, doing all of that kind of thing, and thought I might be, the Black Lucille Roberts at some point and franchise this whole thing and whatever. But through that, again, the path this way, that all means something, because I worked out so much. One of the women that I was going to the gym with at the time asked me to be in a fashion show. She was the manager of a dress barn, a retail dress. Everybody knows the dress barns. And she said, come be in my show. We're asking some regular people to, model, and you'll get a discount on whatever you buy that day for being in the show. I was like, oh, well then, yes, absolutely. And, there was a woman there. She had invited a few regular folks, i.e. me, but then she also knew a woman who ran a modeling school. So she taught runway classes and whatever. So she brought some of her students to be in the show as well. And she and I got to chatting, and she's like, do you model professionally? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? I'm not a size 0, and I'm not, 6 foot tall or whatever. And she may or may not have just been trying to sell me runway classes, but the seed was planted. And it's funny, I actually didn't end up paying for any of her runway classes, but she paid me to offer fitness classes at her studio. Because at the time, like I said, I was looking for my exit strategy. So I was certified to teach. So I was teaching kickboxing to her modeling students. And then she and I were just talking about the business, and, she was giving me tips and stuff like that. But that was a seed that was planted. And I looked at it at the time as something that would be a fun distraction from cubicle life, basically, 50 hours a week of cubicle life. And then maybe on the side, I could go do a photo shoot every now and again and make a couple extra bucks to go on vacation with. But as I sort of started getting more involved in that business and doing more on camera stuff, because modeling is what it is, no shade. If somebody wants to pay me to take my picture, I ain't going to turn the money down. But it wasn't anything that, again, it wasn't something that fulfilled my soul. I didn't really think I was, contributing anything of real value. And again, that's not to put any other models down, but I personally was just like, I just don't want to stand around taking pictures all day. But once I got a chance to be in front of a camera, speaking to people, interacting, with interviews and different things like that, I was like, oh, now this could be something, because I know how to run my mouth, clearly. So that was sort of the beginning of Tech Life Steph.
I see. So, gosh, so many questions. I feel like so many of us have this experience where we go out, we get that first job, we think, wow, this is life. We got our degrees, we got our this and our that. And it just ain't what it seems like when you walk into that position. I had a very similar position when I graduated from law school. I went from engineering to law, out into this big firm, making a bunch of money. It looked great on the outside, but I cried every day on the way to work. And I'm wondering for you, how did you know that moment when you needed to transition? Because so many people get to that point, right? But they just stay. They feel like this is what you do. What was that moment for you?
That's a great question. I'm not sure what finally made me say, I've had it, because, like you cried every day. I was angry every day, like just from the commute and the people around me, like literally fists balled up when I got home, and it would take me a minute to decompress. And when I got in the building every day, it would take me a moment. Like people literally wouldn't come speak to me for like 15, 20 minutes after I got to work. And then they'd be like, is it okay? Because I wasn't even on some angry Black woman. I guess you could just feel my energy and the tenseness that I brought into that space with me. And it was just, and I just felt, I don't know, I got to a point where I just felt like I couldn't do it anymore. I was working, I don't know if it was necessarily anything at work, any one thing at work that I was like, this is it, this is the straw. But I had gotten to a point with the other stuff I was doing, with the modeling and acting stuff that I was doing, that I was actually making a pretty decent part-time living doing that. And I'll tell you what it really was. I was getting sick, like literally twice a quarter. I would get really, really sick because I was running myself ragged. Before I left my job, I was already working part-time at QVC as a model. So I had what I called my 2 a.m. rule there. And because QVC is 24 hours a day, it's live television 24 hours a day, every day except Christmas Day. And so my 2 a.m. rule was if I got finished at QVC at 2 a.m. or earlier, so 1 a.m., midnight, 11 p.m., something like that, I would go home, I would sleep, I would go into work late, like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and then stay late. But if I got done at 2 a.m. or later, so 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., I would go straight to work and sit there by myself in that cubicle, by myself at that computer, by myself, nodding like this. And, I'd get to leave a little bit earlier, but I was literally working around the clock. So I was getting sick. I used to get really bad sinus infections a few times a year. So I was getting sick a lot, and it was just getting to be too much. And I'm like, something has got to give here. I'm not sure what this career is going to look like just yet. Because Tech Life Steph wasn't quite born then, but I said, you know what? I might be able to make something out of this if I can give myself the space to do it for real, for real. So it took 2 years, actually. I had a 2-year plan where I traded in my car. I had this huge SUV that cost a ton of money and guzzled a bunch of gas. So I traded that in for something smaller and cheaper and more fuel efficient. I refinanced my house to sort of massage the, escrow and the payment together, but separate. And I had a dollar amount that I wanted in the bank that I would be comfortable with, that would sustain me for 6 months or whatever, and while I was working to figure it out. And once that got done, it was time to go. It was time to go. But it was a combination of things, of just, seeing the potential over here with the money that I was making, and just wearing my body out completely. So it was like something has to give. And since I don't like the job, it's going to be the job.
No, that's so, gosh, I love this advice so much because, I talk about this a lot. When I was growing up, I didn't really know people who liked their jobs. I thought, work was just something you did.
You just did.
Because you had to. Just did it. That's exactly right.
I got bills to pay.
That's right. That's right. So I love that you say you left the thing you didn't like and you went to do these other things. And now you've created this brand. Tech Life Steph is very well known. Obviously, you've worked with some amazing people and still continue to work with amazing people. And you said you hadn't really started it as Tech Life Steph, the brand, when you left. So at what point did you go from working as a model, doing QVC, to a brand of your own and a business of your own? How did you do that?
So that's a fun story. Because before Tech Life Steph was born, I thought I might be an entertainment journalist. I was very much into celebrity and pop culture back then. I mean, just literally every day I had like 7 different, entertainment blogs that I read voraciously every single day. I had to know what was going on in everybody's life, and, Perez Hilton and the Shade Room and all. I was obsessed with celebrity culture back then. Don't ask me why. I have no idea why, but obsessed with celebrity culture. So I thought I would be an entertainment journalist and do red carpets and who are you wearing and all that kind of stuff. And I actually did get to do a little bit of that. I did a couple of jobs with Rolling Out magazine out of Atlanta. So I got to be on some red carpets and all that. And it was cool. But it's a very, very hard area to break into because everybody wants to do that. That seems like the glamorous, thing. And there are a ton of actual journalists that want to do that. So as I'm, submitting to news networks and E and all that, they're like, oh, where'd you get your journalism degree from? I'm like, I don't have a journalism degree. So that was a huge stumbling block and roadblock for me at the time. And then I don't think necessarily that there were people, there were some people that were building brands doing that, but at the time I didn't really want to sort of start from scratch and have to, even though that's what I ended up doing with tech, but I didn't want to have to go that route. I wanted to get a job, I wanted to get a job at a news network or something, talking about entertainment. And it was happening in dribbles, but not really. So I had an interview. I had a meeting with. I lobbied very hard to get a meeting with man. I'm gonna go ahead and put his name out there because he didn't work for them anymore. Payne Brown was the VP of diversity at Comcast at the time, and Comcast is headquartered in Philadelphia, where I live. I'm right outside the city, and at the time, Comcast owned a part of TV One. And TV One at the time had a show called TV One Access, which was a spinoff of Access Hollywood that Sean
Yes,
Roberts.
I remember this. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was just like, Sean Robinson ain't got to be all greedy, taking all the jobs. Like they could have somebody else for TV One, and she could be like on NBC, or I could at least be a correspondent and get in there, and you know what I mean? I'm like, she shouldn't be hogging all the TV jobs. Not that she was, but that in my mind, I'm like, come on. So that was my goal in getting the meeting with this guy at Comcast, was to convince him that I was super fabulous and that they needed to put me on TV One Access. I was very specific in my intention in getting this meeting with this man. So it is January 2011. January 2011. I would never forget it. Cold as all get out, snow on the ground, the whole nine. I finally get this meeting with this guy. And a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, is a stylist and brand image consultant, Toy Sweeney. And she had helped me pick out this outfit, and it was, showing all the curves and everything. And so I'm in this dress. It's freezing. I ain't got no stockings on. I'm in shoes that are like a half size too small, but they were the shoes that had to go with the dress. And I was like, I don't care. This meeting is everything. I got to make this meeting work. Wig, child, the whole nine, hair, makeup, wig. So get to the meeting, and the first thing that should have alerted me to the fact that this wasn't going to work out well for me was his receptionist, his assistant. I get in there and she's like, oh my God, you look amazing. You look just like a member of En Vogue. And I was like,
what?
And don't get me wrong, those ladies are beautiful. Terry and Cindy and Maxine, y'all are gorgeous. But at the time, that was 15 years prior to that time. So I was like, that's not really the look I was going for. Right. I wasn't really going for 1998 R&B group singer. So if that's the vibe she's getting, I probably didn't put this together as well as I thought I did. I was just like, it's a compliment, but not. So I was like, dang. So I get in there. Hi, Mr. Brown, thanks for taking this meeting. I appreciate it. I'm Stephanie Humphrey, I'm an engineer, but I've been doing all the, so I'm running down, my entertainment resume to him. And he's sitting there like this, literally, his face. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. So I talked for like 15 minutes straight. And he's like, what are you doing? That's literally all he said to me. He said, what are you doing? And I'm like, as my bottom lip starts quivering. I'm literally trying not to cry at this point. And I'm like, I don't understand what you mean. And he's like, what are you doing? And I don't understand what you're talking about. He said, you came in here, you mentioned you used to be an engineer in passing, and you haven't talked about it again. He said, what are you doing? And it still hadn't clicked for me, because I'm still like, I don't know. And he said, listen, he said, I know thousands of pretty girls that want to be on a red carpet. He said, I don't know anybody that looks like you that could do what you could do. He said, this ain't you. This is not you. And he's like, I don't even know you. And I know that this ain't you. You are t-shirts and jeans and sneakers and, tomboy and all. He's like, what are you doing? And I kid you not, God spoke to me right then. And I said, I sat there for another 15 seconds and I said, I could be a tech life expert. That was literally my response to him. I could be a tech life expert. He said, there you go. And Tech Life Steph was born January 2011 in that office at that moment. It was like and I literally spent the rest of that day, because I was reporting traffic at the time, because that's a part of the journey too, me reporting traffic for the news and talking about how backed up 95 is on camera. So I had to go straight to work after that. But I literally spent the next 36 hours wondering how I didn't think of that myself. Like, why didn't I think of that? Like, what have I been doing this whole time? I've wasted, all years, blah, 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 blah. But what I came to understand was that, number one, it wasn't a waste, because I needed the media training anyway. And I think I had so closely associated the idea of being an engineer with being at the job I hated that I threw the baby out with the bathwater. I was born an engineer. I'm always going to be. I always want to know how things work. I always want to solve problems. I always want to figure stuff out. You know what I mean? That's all engineers do is figure out how things work. And so, that's never going to go away. And, understanding how I could put that together with now this newfound love of running my mouth on camera was I just needed someone to connect those dots for me. And once he did, I was off and running.
I love that. So many light bulbs are going off as I'm listening to you tell that story. That is amazing. So Tech Life Steph was born. You had not put it together in that way, but you had all this amazing background, and you turned all the stuff you already had in your toolkit into a brand.
That's right.
And so it's 9 years later, you now have this amazing, thriving brand. Strahan Sara Keke. You've done all these different things. You've become like a personal branding expert. And I'm wondering how you view your brand and your business. Is it that you are in media and you just teach people about brands? Are you a branding expert who happens to also do media? What is your brand right now as you have all these different things in your toolkit? What is the brand?
It's so funny. That's a great question, because I do find that I am asked now for that expertise, where I don't necessarily consider myself a branding expert. I mean, clearly something I've done has worked out, you know what I mean? But I don't know that I would, because I'm old school in the sense that, I feel like instruction also has to come with experience, which is not necessarily true, but that's just the way my mind works. I'm like, I've never taken a class on branding, and I don't have any kind of certification, and I don't, you know what I mean? But clearly the experience speaks for itself in where I've been able to place myself. I would still consider myself a media personality. I am a media personality. I'm a tech contributor to a large media company. That is my job, and / public speaker, because Till Death Do You Tweet is the other side of that coin. And that's where the book comes in, and the workshop and the seminar. And there are some, when I do Till Death Do You Tweet for professionals, because there's 3 versions of it. When I do the version I do for professionals or college students, there is a content strategy conversation that happens in that workshop. But I don't know that I would add, media personality / public speaker, author / brand. I don't know if I would add that third / branding expert to the end of it. I mean, it's something I can do. And maybe at some point, you'll get my brand life together and help me figure out how to fully incorporate that into everything else and make it make sense. But right now it's kind of a add-on, kind of a little bit of gravy that you would get with some of the other stuff that I do.
Yeah. So all of that is so indicative of what Black women do every day. We take all this stuff we have all this knowledge, we work whatever the full-time job is, we have all these things we're doing outside of the full-time job. And you, more than many people I see on social media and in real life, you balance those things really well. And I would love to talk about how you do that, how you balance the Tech Life contributor stuff with Till Death Do You Tweet, which is your business and your brand. How do you do that? Is it that you spend just like nights and weekends on the business, or how do you balance all those things?
Well, no, it's always together and happening, because I'm not on television every day. That I think it would be different if I have a freelance contract with ABC News, so I'm kind of on a as needed basis. So I'm not, if I was on TV every day, if I was like a Robin Roberts, hey Robin, where I was getting up at 2 a.m. and was doing this thing every day, it would probably be a little bit more challenging with that. But since I'm not on television every single day, most of my days are free to work on content, for Till Death Do You Tweet, to put forth marketing efforts for the book, to do outreach to schools and companies and things like that. So there's a lot more time in each day, I think, than people realize, just because I'm not on television every single day.
I see. So a lot of the people who listen to the podcast, who watch the videos online on YouTube, are working professionals who want to start a business. They want to figure out just what a business looks like. So what does your business look like? I think I know a lot of the tentacles that you kind of operate within the business, but what does your business look like?
So it's the media stuff. So, I do get paid for the television work that I do. It's the public speaking stuff. I do probably, I'd say 3.5 speaking engagements, well, maybe 2.5 speaking engagements a month. And then it is, now it's the book as well. The book has been actually doing pretty well. I'm pretty happy about, Amazon, and I'm working to, the intention and the game plan behind the book was to get it to schools. So I'm working to, get it in the hands of every high school student in the country. So there's that. I also have an online course for parents to help them understand, how their kids are behaving online and social media and stuff like that. I don't do as much marketing for that as I need to be doing. So those are right now my four. It's so funny you asked that, because I was just sitting here last night, like, I need another source of income. I need another revenue stream. And so I'm thinking about what else I could be doing passively, but those are the sort of the four things. So television, speaking, the book, and the online course.
Of course. So with the book, which just came out recently, I read it. I have a 9-year-old who will be 10, and I had her read pieces of it. And I was blown away by how much, because I picked it up while I ordered it from Amazon. And as I opened it, I thought, okay, well, this is a book for kids. But as I was reading it, there's so much advice that is also identical for adults, for entrepreneurs, who are people who are building their brands online. How did the idea for the book come about? So why did you create the book in this way, where it's really marketed, like you mentioned, to high school students, but there's so much good information in there for adults and lots of different folks?
It's so funny, and I'm so glad you said that. And it's been very gratifying to hear adults say that. But the impetus for the book was Till Death Do You Tweet. So Till Death Do You Tweet is a seminar that I do before 2020 in schools for students, parents, and professionals, students, parents, or professionals, that helps them understand how to be better digital citizens. How do we be better online? And I've been doing Till Death Do You Tweet since 2012. Really. Well, actually, I've been monetizing Till Death Do You Tweet since 2012, but I had been doing it even before that. It actually sort of was born out of a need for relevant content, because when I was working at Lockheed, I had top secret clearances. I wasn't really at liberty to discuss in any real detail what I did. So when my friends that were educators would ask me to come to career day, and that happened a lot. Oh, you're an engineer. Oh my God, come speak to my students. Come speak to my students. All right. I really wasn't going to show up and say I do performance analysis and requirements verification like that, you know, and I thought about all of those career days I ever attended as a student, where you just falling asleep and the person's in a suit and you can't relate, and they're just droning on and on about accounting or something. And I was just like, I will not be that person to a child. You know, I can't do that to a kid. Yeah. So I started doing this for that purpose. So I would tell my friends, I'm like, yeah, I'll come in and talk about being an engineer. I was like, I want to talk about this first. Give me 20 minutes to talk about, you know, social media responsibility and, you know, all of that. And then I'll answer any questions that kids might have about, you know, what it takes to become an engineer. And, you know, it was right around that time where we were seeing a lot of suicide, cyberbullying related suicides were happening. And I was just like, there's something here, you know, there's definitely something here that is not being addressed at scale in this country. And these kids are dying. So, you know, what can I do? How can I flesh this out and make it into a thing that I can then, you know, present to schools and do? So it started, you know, like I said, very small. It was just for students at first. And as it grew and evolved, I added the piece for parents, and then I added the piece for professionals. But what I found, and this is probably why it resonates so well across all, you know, demographics, because what I found actually resonates with the students the same as with adults, is the idea of your brand. You know, it's like they get that same instruction, you know, when I come in to speak to them. I'm like, you know, who knows what a brand is? And everybody's like, oh, Nike and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, do you think you're a brand? Nobody raises their hand. And I'm like, guess what? You know what I mean? So, you know, we start that conversation there. It gives them that ownership. Now everybody's sitting up there. Oh, my brand. Oh, shoot, my brand. Blah, 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 blah. You know, especially now where influencer is a more coveted job for students than engineer. You know, they study that. People want to be YouTubers before they want to be doctors right now. So, you know, kids are actually very mindful of that. They just hadn't made that connection for themselves. So when you do that, now you can go and talk about, okay, so now here's what can happen to your brand if you're not being careful, but here's what you can do to grow and develop your brand, you know? So now it's a whole different conversation. So that's Till Death Do You Tweet. And the book is just an extension of that, really, because, you know, what I had been finding as I was talking to kids, anytime I went into a school, a principal or head of school or somebody was like, do you have any other resources that we could have so that we can keep this conversation going? And, you know, or is there, and, you know, I had like one sheets and infographics and things that I would send to them, but I was like, a book would, you know, like you got to have, like you said, the multiple streams of income, thinking about how to extend the brand. You know, a book would be great because then they can buy it and then they can da-da-da-da-da. So, you know, I was like, I'm working on a book. I'm like, it's coming, I promise. And I was finally able to get it done. So it's a lot of the same messaging, but I added, exercises in there that the kids can do, that a teacher would be able to, you know, kind of work through and kind of create almost a mini curriculum around, and different case study examples that I use in the in-person presentation to just reinforce, you know, cyberbullying and sexting and things like that. And then there's actually in the book, there's a big LinkedIn section as well for students, because, you know, if you're in high school, like you should have a LinkedIn profile. Like you just should. So there's a big section on that in there, some content strategy tips as well. So the book just takes Till Death Do You Tweet a few steps further.
Okay, Steph. So, guys, so you just ruined my whole flow because I wanted to ask you all these questions about the book, but as I'm listening to you, I have so many questions about the book, how you built the business, about all of these things. So I don't even know where to start. But where I think I will start is with the book because you mentioned the LinkedIn section. And when I tell you, I took that LinkedIn section, I went to my LinkedIn page. And I was like, wait a minute, did I do this? Is my picture right? Do I have, all these
That's
things
right.
here? So
get an audit done. Do a quick little audit.
Yes, I so appreciate you including that LinkedIn section. And I've worked with you to get my LinkedIn stuff together, which I appreciate and respect your advice about LinkedIn. And I'm wondering why you think LinkedIn is so important for both high school students, but also for professionals who are looking to build their brands. What is it about LinkedIn that's different from like a Facebook or an Instagram or a Twitter or whatever?
Well, because there's so much other noise on those other platforms, and you can have a presence. I have a presence on all those other platforms as well, but LinkedIn is where you handle your business. It's the world's largest professional social network. So I think if you're in business, you should be in a place where business people are. Yeah, depending on the nature of your business. I don't know. I can't think of a business where it wouldn't be appropriate to have a presence on that platform, but it's low-hanging fruit. It's free, basically. I mean, I wouldn't pay for any of those premium features. So it's free. I have, and I wouldn't, and I can tell you why later on, but it's free, it's low-hanging fruit. It's a place where all of your information can live if you don't have a website yet, or if you don't have, an about.me page or something like that yet. This is sort of that digital resume where you can have, upload media and photos and different things about what you do and talk about your certifications and your licenses and languages that you speak. So it's a great repository for all of the information that makes up your personal brand. And, there's with 600, 700 million other people on there. I think there's an expectation that you'd have a presence there. And for, as we're really getting, granular into brand and talking about SEO, in your SEO strategy, like LinkedIn should definitely be there because they rank really high. And when someone looks for you, you want them to be finding those good things about you that best reflect your personal brand. And LinkedIn is a great way to do that.
I love that. And as you're talking about the personal brand, that LinkedIn strategy component comes toward the end of the book. At the beginning of the book, you talk about how your personal brand is really represented by 3 different things: your in-person strategy, your in-writing strategy, and by other people. So, and LinkedIn, I suppose, is the culmination of all 3 of those things in one place. Yep. How can we, as we're building our personal brands online, whether it's LinkedIn, which you're convincing me I need to do more on LinkedIn.
I'm just saying. I mean, it wouldn't even take extra work on your part. You do these great podcasts regularly. You post tons of content on Instagram regularly. Clip it, throw it up on, you know what I mean? Like as you're doing it, you know what I'm saying? Like while you're doing it, take another little clip and just throw it up on LinkedIn or throw it in your, whatever scheduling tool you might be using. Throw it in for LinkedIn too. You don't have to make it extra work. It doesn't have to be extra work.
Duly noted.
I'm just
duly
saying.
noted.
Come on, man.
Duly noted. And as I'm doing that, and as I'm thinking about my personal brand strategy on LinkedIn and elsewhere, how can you make sure all these things are working together? I think the thing that is most frustrating for me as I build my own brand, as I work with other people to build theirs, is that third party component, the by other people. Like you can control what you do, the way you show up in person. You can control what you put in writing. You can't control what other people say about your brand though. So how can you just make all these things work together?
Right. So I get a question a lot about people who do still have, you know, the full-time day job and try to get the side hustle going, and, you know, my boss don't want me, blah, 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 blah. I mean, there is a case to be made for doing your best to try to separate those two things, but I don't necessarily think that works very well. It just gets so tricky. I think while you're at your job, you know, within the confines of whatever your company policies are or whatever, I think there's a way to combine, you know, what you do with what you do, basically, if that makes any sense. I think there's a way to marry those two things. So because the lessons really translate across industry, the lessons of perseverance and the lessons of stick to itiveness and of trial and error, and, you know, those stories translate across, you know, industries. So I think you can share those things on the same platform while also promoting your side business. So for instance, let me give you a for instance. So say you were an attorney, but you also baked, you know, on the side, and you were trying to get your baking business, that you may want to like have a separate Instagram for your baking business, because Instagram lends itself to visual, and, you know, you throw some beautiful pictures of cupcakes up and people will love that. But on LinkedIn, how do you do that if you don't want to have a whole separate page just for your baking business right now, because it's not your full-time thing? You're like, I only have this, and I'm going to be transitioning anyway. So how do I start? What's the content strategy that connects those dots? You know, as an attorney, you know, you're privy to, you're in IP, you're working with that. So so then you have that conversation about it. So when I was setting up the I used my understanding of intellectual property law to come up with a custom, you know, technique for my cake business. So you have to be very creative sometimes and inventive in thinking about how you connect those dots. I think, you know, ultimately you sort of want, and ultimately it's only going to be just you. So you and whatever else you do will hang off of you as the brand. So it's not really going to matter that you think that the things you do are so disparate, because it's really you. So, you know, you're just telling your stories, you're relating pieces from this job, pieces from this job, pieces from, you know, home life and family life, pieces from the stories with the kids. All of that is just going to go into, you know, brand you. And so that's I think how you get around that and how you think about it. I don't think you need to try to make the separation in your mind of, I'm Stephanie, the media personality, but I'm also Stephanie, I'm just Tech Life Steph, you know what I mean? And we're going to make all of this make sense, you know, some kind of way. And that's the challenge is to make it all make sense, because people are going to want to know all of those pieces about you.
Right. And that's what people love the most. We love stories. Exactly. We love knowing that you bake and you're also a lawyer, that you have an engineering degree and you also do this other work. And now I love following you because you do this really well. There are two people who I think do it really well. You're one of them. The other is Bozoma St. John, who is a marketing officer, chief marketing
Genius,
officer.
Right.
Yeah, like just the way she does it, the way you do it, I think you both do it phenomenally well. So I'm taking notes, definitely taking notes from both of you about those strategies. And the other thing you say in the book, as you're talking about building your brand with all these different strands and ensuring that there's one picture of you, there's also the bad stuff, right? So you go off on somebody on social, you do what Kanye West did this week.
Girl.
Lose your damn mind on Twitter.
You
know, these things where there's bad behavior. And I love your chapter in the book about this bad behavior. So I'm wondering what suggestion you can offer to people when they do mess up, because we all mess up. We're human.
Yes, we do. We
fall
down,
the bad
but we
stuff.
get
That's
up.
Right. Like your shirt, you're wearing a shirt right now that says grace and mercy.
That's right.
We need it.
So the first thing you got to do is own it, own it, own it, and own it, and own it, and own it again. I think, I think that's where Kevin Hart got messed up when he got all jammed up with that Oscar stuff. He got very defensive about the fact that I already apologized for this. Why do I got to keep talking about this? Because you do. Because the way social media works, that apology you gave 2 years ago, probably only 100,000 people saw it. The other billion people on the planet didn't see it. You know what I mean? So you may have to keep owning it and keep apologizing. And you can reference the fact that, like, I've addressed this before, but I realize that not everybody may have seen that other apology. I want to go on record as saying, blah, 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 blah. So that's the first thing. You got to own it. And then you have to be sincere about changing and being better. And then you have to use SEO to your advantage. Again, search engine optimization. So consistently start to populate the internet with better stuff. Eventually that stuff will sink down further and further in search results. Somebody's always going to be able, if they just really have a mind to try to dig up some dirt on you, they're going to be able to do that no matter what. But you can make it harder for them. You can make it as hard as possible by pushing that content off into the internet ether, if you will, by being consistent about the stuff you do from this point on. So, even if you're just curating other people's posts and, or use it to your advantage, you know what I mean? To sort of maybe splinter your brand or evolve your brand in a different way. You know what? I used to be super, super homophobic, but since I've been studying this issue, I found this, and I wanted to share this article to let people know. And I want to do, and you don't necessarily have to take up that particular cause, but if it's something that, you did that you legitimately regret and that you've legitimately tried to educate yourself on going forward, you can use that to your advantage as well. And start sort of adding content to what you do around, your understanding of where you're at now with that issue.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And the other advice you give in the book on this topic is no matter what you think you've deleted or how much you think you've scrubbed the
ain't
internet,
going nowhere.
nothing goes away.
Till death do you tweet. That's why it's called that. It ain't going nowhere. It ain't going nowhere, no how. There's just way too, like I said, you may be able to effectively bury it so that the average person can't get to it. But it's a 15-year-old with a computer in his mom's basement can pull up anything. So you don't want to get lulled into a false sense of security that, well, I deleted that post a while back, so I don't have to worry about that. Like, it still could come back. It's still very searchable and recoverable, so you got to be mindful of that.
Yes, excellent advice and excellent book. I encourage everybody who's listening, or if you're watching this on YouTube, to pick the book up. Steph has it behind her there. I've got my copy right here that I've been reading and sharing with my children. If you work in a high school, a college, and middle school, kids need this book. Yeah. Adults need this book. They really, really do. And so a couple other questions for you, Steph. As you were talking
I got all kind of time, Sharon.
I do not want to take too much of your time, but you said two things earlier that I just cannot let you leave without talking about. Because, so many people, like, they start their side hustle, they start their thing, and they do one event, or they sell one product or 10 products or whatever, and it doesn't go that well. You talked about your first event having 4 people. And now, like, your book wasn't it like on the scroll and
it was a hot new release.
That's right.
I'm so excited.
It was a hot new release in the middle of Times Square in 2020. So how did you do that? So, like, the first couple of times, it sounds like you, like many of us, start small and you grow.
Start small.
Did you ever feel like, okay, this isn't working because it's small? What advice do you have for people when they're starting small?
I didn't, and I'll tell you why. Because I am a person of faith, obviously, clearly, and I didn't choose this for myself. That's the thing. I think that, and people are very surprised when they find that out, because, yeah, oh my God, you're so good on TV. You always want to be on TV. I never wanted to be on TV. I never had any aspirations to be on television, and not even because I didn't think I could do it, or, oh my God, I'm not, pretty enough to be on TV, or I'm not this enough, or I'm not enough. It had just never even occurred to me. The idea that I could create a whole nother career on television, you know what I mean? Because you think about TV and it's actors and people that want to be movie stars and all that different stuff. And I never wanted to do any of that either. I wanted to be an engineer. Like, I was doing what I thought I wanted to do. I was doing exactly what I thought I was put on this earth to do. And so the idea that I'm doing this was not my plan. It was absolutely God's plan from day one. And I had to be obedient to that. So I don't feel like I necessarily had a choice in the matter, because once he showed me what was possible and how I was going to be able to help people, especially once we made that pivot and Tech Life Steph got going, I was like, oh snap, like, people need help with technology. Like people really need help. So it was that idea of, I can really help people. And if I'm going to help people, I might as well do it on the biggest platform I can, achieve for myself. And I like running my mouth, so why not do it on TV? So it was all different things, but it started, like you said, very small, very humble beginnings. I was basically starting over, because, up to that point, like I said, I had acted, I had been in 2 feature films, I had modeled for QVC and other print publications, I had reported traffic for the CBS affiliate here in Philadelphia, 95 southbound jam from Woodhaven Road down to, the whole nine. So, I had legitimate media experience and credibility, but I still had to start over in this space as a tech personality and contributor. So I started a blog like everybody else was doing at the time. My blog was called A Matter of Life in Tech. And I would just write about stuff that I thought people would care about. And, let's talk about this app today, or there's a new iPhone coming out. Let's talk about that. Let's write about that. Eventually it never really got super, super popular. And I wasn't necessarily trying to become a blogger per se. I just wanted to use that platform to show that I could write and use it to get bigger profile, higher profile writing assignments, which is what I did. So from my own blog, I started writing for theroot.com way back in the day. They weren't even doing tech back then. I actually originated a column for The Root called Tech to Go, back when Cheryl Huggins was the editor. And yeah, it was.
Remember this? Okay.
It was like tech and then number 2 and go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was I originated that columm there at The Root. And because that was when social media was like, really, everybody had a Facebook by then, Twitter was popping, and Cheryl, the editor, was very into kind of the digital space and wanted to really do a lot around that. So I started writing that for The Root for free. Use that to pitch to ebony.com. So I became the tech contributor to ebony.com and Ebony Magazine for free at first. And then Jamila, shout out to Jamila, she did start paying me. And then used that to parlay onto TV, because again, it was like, I assumed like, okay, I've been in the media space now because at that point it had been probably like a good 5 years, that I was doing all the other stuff that I was doing. And I got 2 engineering degrees. So you would think it would be just a natural transition. Like, oh, let's bring this young lady on to talk about technology. And it was like, no, who are you? I don't know you. What have you done? What have you done for me lately? Basically. So the writing was to build the authority that I needed to get to television, because they didn't introduce me when I got on TV as former engineer Stephanie Humphrey. They introduced me as tech writer for ebony.com. Stephanie Humphrey is going to tell us about this new app. So, you needed that street cred basically. So I spent, a lot of time, I spent about 2 years really building up that street cred as a technical person. Nobody even believed I was, knew anything. I was like, do I need to shrink my degrees down and put them on a button and wear them right here? So people need to recognize I worked hard for them, So, so it was very humbling actually to have to, start over for all intents and purposes and prove to people again that I could do this in this space. But, from those writing assignments and outposts, I was able to get on Fox 29 here in Philadelphia, Good Day Philadelphia, did segments for them, did weekly segments for them for free for like 2 years. And I still go on every now and again and talk about whatever. But I was able to get on QVC. I went back to QVC as the rep for HP. So I sold laptops and printers and stuff for HP on QVC for 2 years. From there, I was doing little stuff still with news and media. There wasn't a whole lot I could do because of conflict of interest things with QVC, but I was still doing little stuff. And someone saw my YouTube channel. One of the producers at the Harry Show saw my YouTube channel and was like, we're trying to get our Harry Connick getting a talk show, and we're getting all our experts together, and you would be perfect as the tech expert and blah, blah, blah. So did that. And then, parlayed that into, right after Harry got canceled was when Strahan, Sara, and Keke, it was actually just Strahan and Sara at the time. Mm-hmm. Keke wasn't there yet, but that started happening right as I was transitioning from Harry when his show got canceled. So was able to kind of get a foot in the door there, and been rolling ever since.
I hope this is the second book. I hope this whole strategy, the memoir, and really the importance of content. Your content is your currency.
That's right.
And
that's right.
You parlayed your content from, it sounds like, humble beginnings, your own blog, into these huge platforms. Like, in the scope of, I don't know how long we've been talking, but you dropped like all the things I love, all the names of things I love, and you've done that through your content. So that is really, really incredible. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. This has been great.
It's been my pleasure. And I would just say, to anybody that, like you said, did the one event and then things didn't really seem like they was popping off, and then they decided, oh, maybe this is not for me. And like, honestly, all of this is great that we just talked about for the past hour, but it's the persistence that's going to get you there. And it's going to take as long as it's going to take. You have to really internalize that idea and be okay with it, and if that means you might need to keep another little side hustle just to keep the lights on in the meantime, then so be it. But none of this would have mattered because there were plenty of moments when I could have been like, man, this ain't working out. Somebody else done told me, no, I'm sick of this. I'm sick. You know what I mean? There were plenty of moments where I could have just chucked up the deuces and been like, I'm gonna just go back and get me a real job and forget about it. But one, again, it was my faith, because again, I did not choose this. And the fact that things kept working out, I was like, well, clearly, I'm supposed to be here because things keep working out. And I have been trying to be, as obedient to God's plan as I can, but also I do actually love this, you know what I mean? Because God knows better than I do. And I love this. Like, I love that. I've been doing it for a long time without pay. This is, they find something you would do even if you didn't make $1, you know what I mean? All those little memes you see, like I would be doing this regardless. I don't get paid for the 60-second tech break, but I love putting that content out there. But if there's a sponsor watching, please feel free to reach out. But I love to do it because I know I'm helping people. This is my ministry. This is the way I serve. So I do it with the understanding that the reward, whatever that reward you're seeking, will come, and it might just be the satisfaction of knowing you help somebody save some money with the app they just downloaded. Maybe that's all you get that day. Maybe that's all you get that month or that quarter as far as payment goes. But I'm focused on a bigger picture. I know, what God has in store for me. So you really have to fix your mind with the understanding that it's going to take a while. you might get lucky and just go viral and blow up and be able to ride that wave to retirement. But the likelihood of that is very, very small. It's probably going to take a lot longer than you think. And so that's why you need to make sure that it's something that you actually want to do. I think, social media has gotten us on this entrepreneur culture kick that got everybody looking for a side hustle and doing stuff that they don't actually even want to. You don't like real estate. Tell the truth. You don't really want to be here. You don't want to flip houses. You don't even like home improvement. You know what I'm saying? So why are you just trying to be on this bandwagon? Because that's what everybody else is doing and because it looks hot on Instagram. So, that's the first thing you got to do is make sure that this is something you actually want to do and you love to do, because it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for suckers. You know what I mean? You got to make sure this is something you really want to, because there are going to be those moments where, you don't think you can keep going. And thankfully, I'm a company of one, and the things that I do are largely just coming from my own head. So I don't have the overhead of a physical location and, paying employees and things like that. So I understand those might be considerations for people, and they feel like I can't keep this up and it's a lot to do, but I think there's always a way to pivot. If it's something you truly love, I feel like there's always a way to pivot to do it, more cost effectively. And you just got to hang in there. I wish I had something else I could tell you that was going to be like, you did it, but it honestly is, you just got to hang in there.
Girl, pass the collection plate, because I'm in your hallelujah corner right now. I feel like this is a good message for everybody, me included. This was awesome, Steph. Thank you so very much. Now tell the people how they can find you. How can we find you? Where can we get the book? What is all your information?
All that, till deathdoyoutweet.com, 1LTIL, till deathdoyoutweet.com. You can get the book there. You can find out about the seminar. You can find out about the online class for parents. And you can follow me all around the web at Tech Life Steph, because brand consistency.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Shontavia Show. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment wherever you're listening. You can find me on social media everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and wherever else, at Shontavia JESQ. You can also visit me at shontavia.com to find a transcript of this episode, along with other show notes. While you're there, please be sure to subscribe to my email newsletter. The information shared in this podcast and through my other platforms is designed to educate you about business and entrepreneurship, and I love to do this work. While I am a lawyer, though, the information I provide is not legal advice and does not create or constitute an attorney-client relationship. The Shontavia Show is a Leverage Incorporated original. The show is recorded on site in South Carolina and produced at Sit and Spin Studio in Greenville, South Carolina. Original music and sound design is by Matt Morgan and Daniel Gregory. Mixing and mastering is by Daniel Gregory. And the video is by GVL Media.